So is this visible to everyone? And also, if there's a lot of
Yes,
disturbances,
it
yeah,
is.
like in terms of background noise, just let me know. Maybe I can ask people who work downstairs to, speak a little lower. Um, so, um, want to know what it strikes you in the first place. So I have put together 4 photos from the past. The first one is, if you go a little closer, then you said it 6/11/1999. It's a photo from 1999, and then goes like 2000, 2001, 2, 3. So it's between 1999 to 2002, 3. These 4 photos. Um, I want to I want to highlight through these photos, um, the involvement of diverse people, in this space. The first one is, uh, it's a typical roadside hotel, and you see a pan dukan on the right side, uh, which used to be run by a non-Manipuri. If I remember correctly, he was a Bihari family, and now they run a bigger, shop nearby. So there is an element of diversity in the first photo. In the second photo, it's the women workforce that's kind of, very visible, as well as in the fourth photo, who's cooking and trying to serve, food to a customer out there. And in the third photo on the left side, um, here again, the presence of the women is always there. And just behind this sofa, you have, we see a almirah with, like probably new crockeries and utensils. And uh, all these different photos obviously speak differently, but what for me is this kind of represent a certain kind of upbringing, relationships, um, also workforce and work roles that I was exposed to from a very, very early age. Uh, I was part of all this. The hotel that's in the first photo, the women workforce in the second photo, absent, present in the picture, but I as a person was always part of this. And then also, I want you to pay a little attention to the square shape, black and white or black and brown design of the, wall, if you see. So in the next photo, these 2 photos are again from the early 2000. On the uh, right side is a structure that my sister, who was the first artist that I knew in my life. She was the first artist that I ever come to know in my life. She was born an artist. And if you see on the right side, there's a small house-like structure that she, crafted with her own hands. And you see a little white, house there, out there, here. And also the kind of structure that she had built using just cards, and on the floor, carpeted floor. And we felt that, okay, we want to capture this. So back then, we used to, me and my sister used to click photos of people and things that we would do together. So I was more of an observer, in this. So on the right side is a structure that she built, the little tiny house that she built with her own hands. I was just being a mere spectator. And on the left side is, I particularly want to look at the painting sketch that's behind on the wall. Um, there's a white dove apparently, and it's signed by her. I can't see the date here. So this particular wall, this particular, the one on the left side, that wall is going to be repeated in other slides. So I wanted to also request you to pay attention to the window, the wall, and the little white curtain that is slightly visible there. So this was before I went to Delhi. This was while I was in Manipur, growing up in Manipur, in Moirang mostly. So this was all before that. Delhi kind of opened up a lot of avenues for me, a lot more new friendships, a lot more new collaborations. Um, Also coming out of the closet, being able to kind of, come into terms about who I am. All those kind of journey happened, and this was one of the most visible uh, curation that I did, thinking of a project that way, along with Pavel Segolsem, of course, So this brought me into this is visibly the most again visible curation that I've done in the last 4 or 5 years. This started in 2018, and so this is just a screenshot of how the website looks, how the web blog looks like. Um, and so this is the WordPress blog, and this is the Instagram page. Um, I have personally invested myself, in curating this different pages. There's Twitter as well. There's Facebook as well, and there have been many offline, some offline events that we have done in Guwahati, in Delhi. So Chinky Homo project in that sense kind of really has really been that most visible curatorial, engagement for me. Also very collaborative in that sense. For 2018 to 2020, 21, 20, let's say, I have collaborated mostly with Pavel and other organizations. But starting in 2021, we have been able to grow the team, and the collaboration has expanded now, and we are 4 people right now, so it's a bigger collaboration now. But in since the beginning, a lot of my, let's say, storytelling, a lot of my ethnographic works, a lot of my curatorial work have gone into making this. Yeah, so that's there, and especially if you go back and see at the older blocks, then it's even more visible. So that's there. So this pandemic series was like a project that I did within the ambit of the Chingy project, but it was a standalone curatorial series, which was funded by SAATHII and UCSB Orphalia Center, Santa Barbara. So it was again collaboration of sort. Um, uh, they funded the work, and I could collaborate with so many people. Some of the photographs I took myself, some of the stories I documented myself, but some of the photographs, some of the stories were also self-documented in conversation with me, in collaboration with me. So in a way, pandemic series kind of also uh, is both a curatorial project for me, but also a collaboration which also happened during COVID-19, which means the method and processes of storytelling, documentation, collaboration was also mostly done via telephone or online sources, online mediums. So in a way, it was a slightly different process. But then Chigi Homo project that we have always been a mix of this, uh, ground, visits, field visits, wherein you document stories, but also stories that are being shared through digital platforms and digital mediums. So this happened in 2020-21. It was a year-long series that I did with, and many small curatorial events also happened. Like 4 events happened in a span of 1 year, and a closing exhibition also happened, which I didn't bring in because it was looking a little repetitive. So these were posters that I kind of created over the during the course of the series. There was an exhibition that happened in my town in 2000 last year, but yeah, that has not been brought in here. So this was a bit about the Chinky Hummer project, like very, very sort of concise. Uh, Next came parallelly is Matai Society, which happened again during COVID-19 in 2020. Now I want to kind of draw your attention to the window there, brown colored window, brown frame, and the white curtain. Uh, if anyone can identify, if there's any similarity with this window and the walls and this one, anyone?
The flamingo flew away.
Okay, the flamingo flew away, and the color of the wall changed.
Yeah.
And the curtain probably is the same color, but also the curtain has been replaced by a new one. Yeah, so I wanted to also kind of draw your attention to how this particular room, this particular space, which was inhabited by people of my family in that sense, like back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s, where the walls became our exhibition space for my sister, who was like the first artist in my life. And that became, today it has become like a space which is more collaborative, which is more diverse, which is more inclusive in that sense, because the works that are being put up on the walls here, it's not entirely my work. A lot of this have come from collaborative processes, and some are even works by other people, with whom I have done, exhibitions and curations and stories, right? So now that room, that wall, that space, which was earlier inhabited by a close knitted, sort of close knitted, intimate space among siblings. One who's a woman, who's a cis woman, but who's an artist, but one who's also queer person, um, but never really sure at that time. But being struck by the kind of creation, the kind of curation that she used to do back then. And in a way, this space has kind of continued that legacy. Who has kind of, who's always kind of, inhabited this space. It has been women, queer persons, trans people, the trans people pictures, some of them, but wait, the trans people, uh, women, people who felt the need to express, who felt the need to create images and sketches and paintings, which reflect who they are, what their aspirations are. So in a way, it's really an intimate space, but also a space for, exhibition, a space for collaboration, and that's what Matai Society is. And if for those people who don't know, this is a society that I founded in 2020. Um, so that's there. I'm also particularly interested in the idea of curation and production and collaboration, not just in the realm of the digital space, but I'm very, very interested, having worked with people around here in my locality, in my community. I'm also very interested in, uh, you know, curating, exhibiting in the physical space as well. And we have slowly kind of over the years, over the months, uh, you know, reshape, re-identified, redone the space to kind of slowly and slowly reflect what we do, who we are, what we aspire for, what solidarities that we are trying to build. So Matai Society in a way is really that space. And I hope, I mean, these two pictures is able to give you a semblance of, what it is. A little mention of the e-rickshaw here, which is visible in the upper photo. Let's see if this gets reflected in the next slides. This year, last year, December, and this year, the kind of curatorial work, the kind of exhibitionary work, the kind of stories that we shared in that space, in Matai Society space, the kind of, lives and stories that we share, it kind of slowly transformed into other branches, because on one hand, we were curating stories and lives and, visuals, narratives. On one hand, we were curating that. I was curating that particularly, but we also felt the need to looked at um, looked at other aspects of our solidarity, of our friendships and community. We felt the need to also think about sustainable lives. Um, and that's how we kind of branch out to a center called Mahi Center, which is just opposite of Matai Society. It's just right across the street. Here again, if you see, it's a space again inhabited by women, trans women, and queer men. So far, we see very little presence of cis heteronormative men for now. We are very interested in building allyship, but we don't have a very visible allyship right now. Um, so there is a blend of, for me, there is a blend of, intervention projects, while at the same time, such intervention projects and, projects kind of bring out stories and narratives that I am very passionate about curating, right? So there's a very close knit relationship between the kind of stories, the kind of art exhibitions, the kind of spaces that I get to curate, the kind of stories that I get to curate, and to be able to be part of that story with the people, you know, with the people whose stories I'm curating. So that is something I wanted to highlight, that, there is a very close knitted relationship between the stories that I curate, the narratives that I curate, and the actual lives of those stories, right? So that's what I was trying to kind of bring in. Not sure if it is reflected. Um, some ongoing collaborations, curatorial, editorial, ethnographic collaborations. One is Generalities 2, Reframe. Another is, so Reframe is done by this group, based in India. Project Stigma is a transnational project on HIV. And another is a book, an anthology, uh, funded by Mariwala Health Foundation. It's in the So these are ongoing projects. They should ideally come out this year. So there are a few others, but those I haven't brought in, especially books that have happened. Again, all collaborations. Um, so this is more or less what I wanted to take through and think about, reflections and queries from you people, and also maybe, yeah, from my side as well. Thanks. David, should I put the slide like this, or bring back to camera? What do you suggest?
Um, yeah, this photo, the second slide, I think. I quite like it. Yeah. Thank you, Kumam, for the insights to who you are and where did you start from. But I wanted to ask you a question about. But before that, just to acknowledge this. So this was Kumam Davidson Singh, the curator for the project of for the Northeast Network Archival Residency and Exhibition Project, and looking very forward to the coming weeks and how these digital conversations translate into the physical spaces, so to say. And and I wanted to ask you this question, Kumam, that how did you come about starting this anthology series that is Chinky Homo Project? Like what sort of talked you towards it, or what sort of nudged you towards it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't a very conscious decision. It was very organic. It was 2018, and I was in Manipur, very angry, very lost, very frustrated, very lonely as well. Also very furious, not sure about who I am, where I am, and what was I doing. Uh, you know, like 9 8 9 years in Delhi. Unfortunately, I couldn't really get my own grounding. I think I was just kind of jumping from one space to another, one circle to another, DU to JNU, JNU to the queer trans fraternity. So I was literally floating from one space to another, one community to another, not really, never really being sure, like what I was and who I was. So 2018, I posted a very, very angry Instagram post. I could have taken it through. Um, if you go to the Chinky Homo project Instagram page, the first post way back from 2018, that kind of triggered for the project, triggered to the project. It was a trigger. It was the ground and foundation to the project. So I had a friend from Assam. We were together in GNU, not very close friends. We just knew each other. So he had a nude photograph of himself, and it kind of just struck me how, even though he was from Assam and I was from Manipur, somewhere we share a shared history of being constantly eroticized in Delhi. Hai chinky, like hot, cute, acha mal hai, that kind of exoticism, that kind of eroticism, which was also sometimes exciting, sometimes really uncomfortable, sometimes very humiliating. And I wrote a very angry post on that. So the photograph itself was wonderful, which was owned by this person. But I wrote a caption where I talk about, so what like me as a person, somebody like me, so I'll always be reduced to either a chinky and a homo, which makes me a chinky homo, and I'm not sure what's that supposed to you know give me, what's that supposed to mean to me. So in a way, the chinky homo is really this quest, pursuit, attempt to reclaim oneself, but also to just understand, I mean, what does these two labels mean to me? Homo is such a traumatic word anyway. I mean, I have grown up hearing since I was like, what, 3 years old, 4 years old, right? 4 or 5 years old, right? So two really problematic, traumatic labels and words. So in a way, it's a personal quest as to who I am, what I am, and who am I supposed to be, and what do I reclaim? So a very personal quest, but also it became like a community project, a community quest, because it was. It turns out that a lot of us who were in Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Bangalore, Guwahati, especially people in the diaspora, kind of resonated with it, and that's how it was born. And Pavel was just like the you know fuel to the fire. And Pavel was like, hey, this should be a project. This should not be your personal Instagram stories. It needs to be a project, a community project, and that's how it just kind of started. Yeah, but in Plain Speak, which is a digital magazine by Tarshi and Chennai Queer Chronicles, really, really kind of help us, kind of build that foundation. So they showcase us, they launch us in a way through their platforms. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that insight. I was just wondering that we are 6 sessions in, and maybe you should ask the people to turn on their cameras for even a second, just to show their faces.
Maybe I should ask or you should
I
ask.
I already did through you.
Okay, great.
Hello.
I'm just like not sharing the screen for a bit. Yeah, it feels strange to look at my own slides.
Yeah, I see Rishikesh making efforts by the side to, he's getting ready. He's preparing to show his face.
Hello,
Also,
hello, hello.
hi. I keep saying this in all the platforms, more than anything else, like more than funded, projects or small grants or, media features or conference, features or participation. What has really, really been meaningful from the project, both the Chinky Homo project and Matai Society, is the kind of community building that has happened through it, the relationships that has been nurtured through it, um, the kind of bonding that has happened, without which I think I would never get that sense of rootedness in the region. My ethnicity is not enough to give me that rootedness. My ethnicity, my food, a house here had never been enough to get that rootedness. So the project and the society and the, kind of help in um, really sort of grooming that rootedness, groundedness. Um, and that has been so valuable that I just keep talking about this everywhere. Yeah. And that's how I know Ritu and so many other people who are not here right now, but I'm sure, in any event that we do, in future, in Guwahati, there will be so many people who turn up, not because they know me, but because we know each other. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the center of the universe, but because we have formed that, friendships and, kinship. So we just come together, and it's not an obligation. Um, it's it's a value system, I think, that we have kind of formed for ourselves. So we just come together. So it's like I remember, Chingrimi, I think, talk about transgressing border, border, imaginary borders. So we also, in a way, have kind of transgressed that borders of ethnicity, gender, religion, class, uh, and sort of transgress all of this and been able to kind of build a community which is sort of fueled by other ethos, which is often labeled as, let's say, unsocial or taboo. So in a way, it's really this bunch of people who were otherwise outcasts suddenly forming an imaginary nation. So something like that.
Kumam, I'll just ask you very quickly. I'm so sorry I jumped a little bit late into this conversation, but it's quite fascinating because coming from the world that I do, one is thank you for this privilege of sharing where you came from. That's really fantastic for me to hear. I find it at once extremely tragic and sad, but at the same time, it's also extremely positive the way you've put it out there, and the fact that you're talking about community, and the fact that you're talking about fellowship, and people being together. That's really fantastic. But it really it's begging this question now that has this helped in any way? Uh, has it helped any way towards feeling more included in general, like not just within your group, but in general? And I don't know how else to ask the question, so I'm just, yeah.
Well, that's such a, wonderful question. Something that I often think about, honestly. I often ask myself, like, so much struggle that we've been through, like I've been through, so much fight we had to put up that other people do not have to,
Yeah.
in the same way. So what's the takeaway today? Do
Yeah.
we feel included? Do we feel accepted?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to an extent. Yeah. Without this fight, um, without this fight would have been more, without this fight and this struggle would have given a sense of, let's say, absolute exclusion, maybe. But this somewhere kind of gives a sense of being included. But I also know for sure that it's a journey that's just begun.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if I want to step into an intimate space in a house, I think I'm just at the gate right now.
Okay.
And there's so much to
There's
maneuver.
more to go. There's more to go.
There's really more to go. And I want to throw some words now, So in a way, again, if we kind of, intersectionality is something that I want to throw now, intersectionality, transdisciplinary, that way. Also looking at empowerment, inclusion, dignity from a more multi-dynamic perspective, because uh, the law needs to stand for us,
Yeah.
as much as our ethnic community needs to stand up for us, as
Sure.
much as the uh, let's say, religious fraternity. So
Sure.
it's really that multidimensional, interdisciplinary, intersectional,
Wow.
struggle,
Yeah.
struggle and narrative, that sense. Yeah, because I was in Delhi, and uh, for once it felt like, hey, class empowerment just can give you everything. You have money, you have capital, but I think as a young person I felt that back then. But coming back, no, I mean, it's absolutely not. So
Yeah. I would say that.
I and other people that we're close to, we continue to feel excluded. We continue to feel
Yeah.
excluded. But the only difference is today that we are a team, we are a community, we have that solidarity, we are vocal about it. We have the strength to be vocal about it.
So the solidarity is empowering.
It is very empowering. It
Yeah.
is very empowering. I'll just give an example. So, a cis woman who's very closely part of the society and the center uh, comes secretly at the society space from home and workspace because there is so much of domestic violence at home, you know. So there have been occasions where this person secretly comes and stays here for 5 days, 3 days, whichever it takes. So in a way, it's also that safe space, you know. Um,
Fabulous.
yeah,
Yeah.
a safe space where you can be vulnerable and not be hurt, injured, you know. Uh, at the same time, a space also where you garner that strength to step up again, and
Yeah.
and live your life and fight the battle.
Yeah, but this begs so many questions from regular society, right? How are we functioning and what are we valuing if people are not feeling safe being vulnerable? And I'm not saying you have to be vulnerable with the world at large, but at least within your own families or with close friends. If you cannot be who you are, then what sort of society are we really, what are our values as society at large? It's very interesting to think about those things and where we're at.
And how do we kind of increasingly sort of bring in these nuances, these social
Yeah.
realities in
Yeah.
our curations, in our, social developmental works, How do
Yeah.
we bring out the narratives? I think that's something I constantly like to think about, share with others as well,
Yeah.
because I also, just the fact that I was never trained I learned through practice, never trained really. So something that I think I wanted to learn also in that sense from other practitioners here. So
Sure.
what kind of society are we today? And I think a cis woman would have something to say about it. A trans person would have something to say about it. You know, maybe a victim of extrajudicial killing, would have something else to say about it. So there can be diverse narratives, and how do we really kind of reflect and bring those diversities as ethnographers, as researchers, and as artists? How do we bring that diversity? It's never diverse enough, of course, but
Yeah.
the commitment and the attempt, yeah.
I just feel like there's this underlying thread of a core issue of justice here that's at stake. Apart from inclusion, this, that, whatever you may say, it all boils down to justice and how we are with each other as human beings in many ways. And I don't know where that's headed, honestly. It's getting murkier and murkier with the current, the way the state is right now and so many other things. But it is so amazing to see people like you, and I'm friends with Ritu also on Facebook, so I see what he does as well, and what they do as well, and it's really really it's really encouraging. I mean, I don't know what more to say without sounding like I'm patronizing you or something. I'm not. I'm just very much in awe of people who have lived a constant struggle and have still come out of it smiling and wanting to share and transforming things. And that's really fantastic. So kudos to you guys, all of you.
Thanks to everyone. No, I was also, sorry, I'm rushing. I was speaking to Dave today and Rishikesh also, right? And I was actually asking, about the kind of, let's say, origin of NEN, back in the 1916, and the kind of narratives and life that have come from that. And vis-a-vis the kind of stories that we know about Manipur, the women's movement here, also in other states, in Nagaland, Mizoram. I think I've kind of almost forgot what I was trying to say. So yes, looking at from a justice point of view, so the other day I was with, so there was a recent case in Manipur of a gender non-binary person who's allegedly been, not allegedly, who's been harassed and beaten up, because I've seen the doctor's, papers.
Hmm.
So there's no FIR being launched, being registered, because I've spoken to the police as well, and there's really very dicey, murky, twisted, you know, stuff happening within. And at some point, I felt very powerless, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
I felt like my phone is being tapped, the
Yeah.
police constantly calling me, and what did I even stood up for? What did I even stand up for? I mean, I was there because he's one of us, it could have been me, it could be somebody else. So I obviously felt very powerless, and I went on to speak to bigger institutions as such, but just like you said, everybody is feeling a little hopeless and very challenged right now, with the kind of authority and power right now. So the last question that I was asked was, so David, what are you going to do? We are in this situation. What are you going to do? And I said that, you know what, I don't have that much leverage in the, legal institutions. I don't. Neither the human rights fraternity. I don't have a lot of leverage. I'm young. I'm just 33 and I come from a working class family. What do you expect of me? So I said that, at best, we have a community space, you are bruised, you are raped, you are molested, you are beaten up, but you can come, you can come, you can be with us. And this is what I told them, that we have created, and that keeps growing, and that space and that space and people and circle, it keeps growing. Unfortunately, mainstream society, our institutions, our institutions run by cis heteronormative men, I think for the longest time is just refusing to acknowledge it. With women, we have built alliances. But with cis heteronormative men, unfortunately, we haven't been able to build that kind of an alliance or allyship. Very challenging. And I think the effort needs to come from their side as well. And it's not just us who has to keep explaining who we are. I think the effort has to come from their society, and that truly is
not all about one community. I completely agree. Yeah. I think with NEN, in doing our work with gender, what set the Northeast apart from anything else was that there's a scripting of violence. And I don't mean just domestic violence or mental abuse or that kind of thing, not just from a patriarchal viewpoint or a patriarchal gaze, but also from militancy and conflict and unrest in the region that has been there for very, very long. And that kind of very male gaze, that kind of very male aggression, testosterone heavy kind of way of looking at life has actually impacted everybody, including the males, including the ones who think they are cis, whatever, male, or forgive me, I'm not very, this thing with the language you guys use, but the ones who really think they're males, they are also affected in some way by this scripting of violence, and getting it out of your system is something that's really, really tough, particularly in the Northeast. Even though to people who are in mainland India, they look at the Northeast as a place which is pretty equal. And that's not true at all. Especially if you look at tribal societies, especially if you start looking at ethnic, communities, etc. This patriarchy it's very subtle, but it's very much there. And this violence comes in many ways. It comes as mental abuse, it comes as physical abuse, it comes in the way men even see their roles in protecting their own or protecting their families or protecting their communities. And that kind of has just seeped into every aspect of life. And unfortunately, because we are like that, it makes our interactions with the LGBTQI plus community, it becomes even more, they're finding that they're stretching themselves even more, because firstly, they can't even understand with men and women. They already have such a break in that mentality. And then to suddenly say, oh no, it's not just men and women, and now there's so much more, that stretches a little bit more, and particularly for men. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it, they bloody well do it, but it takes also understanding our history with violence in the region, and then breaking that down and breaking that down to understand why men are like this and why women also react like this. They are so used to violence. We are used to having weapons in the house. We're used to having, it doesn't have to be a gun, it can be a dao, it can be anything. But this thing of killing, this thing of good and bad, it's very strong in the mentality in the Northeast. And I don't know if that also, seeps into the kind of experiences that you have, and the struggles that you have because of this scripting of violence. It's another way to sort of,
Yes, yes. I mean, this inherent, violence in the male gaze, and
yeah,
and a and a and a sort of embedded threat, all the time.
yeah.
Yes, yes, it has impacted all of us right from within the family, right from
Yeah.
within the family. It's always been, um, and interesting on the other hand is, like I said, when the women in the house was beaten up, it was the queer trans who stood up for them. And
Yeah.
when the queer trans were beaten up, sometimes it's the women who stood up. Sometimes, not all the time, not all the time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of
Yeah.
that's the kind of relationship that I share with
Men.
my family,
Mm.
and many other folks out there also kind of share that family. And usually, it's the patriarch figure who's the source of that violence, who's the source of that trauma.
Yeah. Mm. Thanks for sharing that. I think Kumam, we've lost him or what?
Yeah, network issues.
How many more sessions do we have left, Devdeep?
So this was the final uh, collaborators session. So we had 5 already.
Mm.
Yeah, we had 5 residents, curator. I think we have to skip Lightbox because there's simply no time, or there would be way too many calls for everybody. So, and on the 25th, we have you from Northeast Network. And actually, that's all that I have scheduled for now. And I was meaning to start with Anuritaba by end of March or beginning April.
Early April, yeah.
Yeah,
There's just
and
a lot of year-ending stuff going on, so we're trying to figure how to,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but because these, or at least I believe that these sessions would be a bit intense, so that like only one per session, not more, not more.
I agree
And
with you completely.
yeah, yeah, and just to give time for everyone also to reflect on what's the information that is being provided. And also, I was wondering, or I was at least hoping that that by the maybe mid end of April, we could have one session where Benba just comes and talks about anything, or about, yeah.
I was actually thinking Ben needs to do the session that I'm doing because she would be fantastic. And I can do an anything session because really I can do an anything session. It really, if you think about reversing it, I think it makes a lot more sense. Think about it.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, I tried to ask her about dates, and she says she has nothing in March. So yeah, and yeah, but yeah, I will try. I will try.
I can do that. I can do it for you. You don't have to do it. I can do it, and then you can reach out to her. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All right. All right.
But the network kind of dropped that for like a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we lost you there. Okay. Okay. I think yeah, this was a great session with a lot of conversations, a lot of intense discussions, and next week is Northeast Network, so more of intense stuff. And yeah. Should we close the session today, or does someone want to say something?
I think we want to either we want to party or we are hungry.
No, it was a really, I'm so glad I could hear Kumam for your session. Also to listen to the journey you have, and out of the conversations we had with you had with Tamara and Kumam, talking about forming these solidarities, and I also see it like, why is it? I guess I don't know if this, when you talk about the space that you share, the space, it's so important to have the existence of such spaces, of such spaces in all our different communities. And it also makes me wonder, as being like a cis woman, and you have these solidarities, why is it always so easier? Because I find it also in I've been working with different foundations here in Meghalaya, like the Faith Foundation, for example, and we celebrated Women's Day just 2 weeks ago in a particular village in Bhoi. And there we had, I had a workshop with the youth, and we spoke about, breaking the bias. We spoke about all this with a couple of exercises. And then we had the headman of the locality. He was the guest of honor, the chief guest. And he gave his speech, and he just, everything that we had built up together, the way he spoke about, especially about, like, we talk about Meghalaya being a matrilineal society and women, but we spoke problems, the patriarchy that exists even in this, the so-called matrilineal structure that we have. Headman and he says, one thing about Meghalaya, the women have all the power, and the men, if we talk about breaking the bias, we need to talk about giving more power to men. And with just these words, holding a position of power as the local headman, he sort of just dismantled everything that we had built up to get about. I mean, just said the exact opposite, and this figure of power, and felt confident enough to sort of say this to the village. And then we had a discussion after that, and there were mostly women, of course, women, and then we had the youth, we had, and we spoke about how disrupting and disturbing it is to have this one figure holding a position of power, and being, he has sort of the privilege or whatever to say this. And I really think, how do we break that? How do we come together? How do we, as a community, how do our voices come out stronger and address these issues wherever we are? So really thank you, for your presentation, and thank you for stressing on communities, solidarities. And I also love your walls, your wall that you identify as with your sister, your childhood, and you bring back the wall now as a wall that includes, a wall of inclusion, including so many other new thoughts and new ways of seeing and living. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a society that we aim to nurture, a different society, just a different society. Because the difference between the earlier painting and the earlier curation and the ones that we do now is the ones that happened back then, there's always a sense of threat somewhere that, if I put this on the wall, if she puts that up on the wall, what will others say, And the tragic part in the story is that she never really became or lived her life as an artist. She gave in to things, and she's not an artist in the way maybe she imagined it. I imagine it, growing up together. She's not. So the tragic part is that she lost that, but we somehow derive a certain future out of that, derive continuity out of it, in a way, an inspiration. If she could do that when she was 12, when she was 13, why not, like 5 of us together? Why not? We are able to do that, and the space kind of really give that continuity. And also talking about Meghalaya, Laptiang, and I have been very fortunate to have many friends from there, including Dona, who died last year.
Yeah.
Dona Marvin, who died last year. And like I said, it's really this imaginary, border, imaginary community, nation that we have really built over the years. And we were part of Dona's funeral, in the sense that I was in Manipur that time, and some of us, Pavel in Delhi and other people were across. We were really part of a funeral in the sense that the moment we got to know about that, culturally we pay, we pay respect by offering flowers and money, right? So at least in our culture, so we decided to offer, money, by whatever, sending through Mickey, who's another, queer person from there. But also we've seen tragic endings to women, to queer trans folks. We continue to see that. I mean, I've grown up seeing women just wasting away their lives at the face of patriarchy, right? And now we are still also seeing queer trans folks wasting away their lives at the face of violence, which is often patriarchal, structurally. And yeah, so we still see that. So we are in a way witness to each other's tragic demise, if I could say that. A lot of people have died over the years, and we have a very, we have a very ironical joke amongst us that, a trans person never lives long enough. 40, they just vanish, So yeah, that's really been the trust to, I think, really tell stories from my side. That's really been the trust. And recently at the Zubaan book launch, I was asked, what kind of story is this? And I'm like, it's really a story wherein I'm trying to tell a woman's story. And I continue to fail because I'm not a woman. I haven't lived that life. Just like I have never lived the life of a trans person, a transgender person. But I continue to tell their story. And I think, in a way, my engagement is to really tell stories which are also not just me. I sometimes tell my story, of course, in my own first-person narrative, right? But I also try to tell a lot of stories, especially of trans persons and women. And whether I fail or not, that's something else. But for me, telling their story is solidarity. Telling their story is building that relationships and community, because I want to be with them. I want to be with the women. I want to be with the queer trans folks. That's why I'm telling that story. We're telling each other's stories. So yeah, who else would I tell? I don't want to tell, maybe I can't tell Gandhi's story. I don't want to tell Gandhi's story, or Indira Gandhi maybe. But yeah, so. Okay, pin drop silence. Please close it if it has to be closed.
Yeah. Wait one. Sorry, there's a very strange confusion inside the room because of two mics and one voice. But yeah, I just wanted to say that thank you everybody for being here, and thank you Kumam, thank you Tamaraba for giving us your time. Thank you Kumam for giving us.
We are at a loss of words after Kumam's presentation now. Everyone has gone silent.
Yeah,
that's
we're
not
all
true,
doing
actually.
it. I'm feeling like I need to reflect a lot on what's been said, and it's like I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you in person and interacting with you. I would absolutely love that. So whoever's here, I don't know if all of you are here. I think Ritu's missing, but whoever's there, I'm back in Guwahati soon, and I would love to interact with you guys once all this is done. You'll have a lot on your plate until it's done, but when it's done, we are all going out together and we're going to talk. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just wondering that I hope that we all will eventually know that we are all going to live in one big house. So we might as well get used to show each other's faces, or just hide behind cardboard plates when we are there. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. All right. Lovely people.
So until next time, guys, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.
Thank
See you
you.
Bye.
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
See
Bye.
you. Bye bye.